Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's exploration of progressive rock, all types of progressive rock from all sorts of eras, this time checking out Opeth. I have a lot of questions here. One, Opeth to me is a progressive metal band. I suppose we have heard some softer songs from them in the past, but progressive rock isn't the area I tend to think of them within. Secondly, though, this track's only 4.5 minutes long. I think that makes it the shortest Opeth song we've checked out on this channel, and I'm sure y'all cherry pick some of their longer epics because they're, well, epic, and there's more time to put interesting progressive elements in. But I don't think I've heard a song this short from them. Also, it's called Goblin, which just kind of cracks me up. Just Goblin. Doesn't really tell me much about it. I hope we have some Goblin vocals in it, though. That'll be interesting. Let's check it out, dive in, see what Opeth is bringing to the table today. Nice brisk 4. Ooh. Also sort of a classic synth sound here too. Reminding me more of Rush than anything I've heard Opeth do. Very fun percussion while still landing on the 2/4 snare. Yeah. Is that a guitar or a synth doing this vamping stuff? Maybe an organ, actually. Electric organ? Is that a hi-hat? Also, it's bouncing back and forth. It could also be a shaker of some sort, though, too. Nice contrast, bringing the energy down, presumably to bring it back up. Yeah, okay. So they cut out the time of just holding the note out, shortening the pattern in half, running it back to back. So we've sort of had an A-B-A-B. This is our second B. Lots of variation on these though. So we're gonna hit a bridge soon then. Called it. Oh, those ghost notes, dude. All the little snare accents. Little variations. shifting away from the 4 to a 3. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. So we were still in A3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Very fast. There's probably a half time. Well, not half. You'd have to cut that up into 3. A third of that speed would probably be the tempo that we were working at. But I didn't get a chance to pick up the time signature of that. Very interesting. There's no singing in it. Where was the Goblin? I don't know that I necessarily even got goblin-y vibes from the music. The music did feel older, though. I'm not sure. I don't know, maybe like 80s, 70s prog rock. Something European, though. Can't place a specific country, but we have heard music like this in the past. Not from Opeth, that's for sure. But I'm trying to think. Of what bands might have sounded like this, because there's a rhythmic element to it. Almost all of this is predicated around rhythmic ideas, actually. We sit within standard time signatures. We have 4/4 throughout the A and the B sections, and then the C and D sections are in 3. I did call the bridge. We had an A, B, C, but after that we went to a D, and we played it a bit more linearly, getting to the outro of the track rather than coming back to one of the earlier ones. Which is interesting because it gives the illusion of a very traditional mainstream structure to this track, despite not being very mainstream at all. But also not having lyrics, which I think is usually where the verse-chorus format works best, to create that familiarity within the lyrical structures and to bring back specific phrases in the chorus to really get those lines which being sung in the chorus into the listener. You know, the earworm thing, trying to get that hook in there so that they're thinking about the song later and want to come back to the CD or the stream or whatever, and to listen to it again, to buy the album, you know, to go on Spotify and play that song. And here I don't really think that it has that large of a benefit, but there is something cool about the structure of this, which is that there's constant variation. I want to save that for another topic, though. What were we talking about? Oh, rhythm. Yeah, variation, though. Don't let me... You can't talk to me. I'm going to try not to forget to talk about that, though. Back on track, though. Rhythm. The very beginning of this song is not necessarily harmonically involved, but it's rhythmically involved. We have the 4/4 time signature, very straightforward, but when you listen to the drums, when you listen to the accent points of the guitar and the organ, you don't really get standard accented beats. They're heavily syncopated. There's not a strong sense of melody throughout here either. As I had mentioned somewhere towards the end of the second chorus, I think it was, might have been the second verse, the riffs here are kind of chopped up into two ideas, the movements and the holding, the push and the pull. We have a fast bit of movement, a few notes, and then we're just going to hold that last note out for the remainder of the phrase, and then we're going to do it again. And this gives you the movement and the stationary, and then the movement and the stationary. What we saw in the second verse or second chorus, I don't remember what it was that we got rid of the stationary. So we just had movement, 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 movement. And it felt very driven, but it also felt a little jarring. So much of our experience with this track had been an understanding of this push and pull, and now we're just pushing and pushing and pushing the other way. And it's just this constant momentum on an idea that we're used to hearing, a relaxation of the tension. I thought that was pretty cool. But it also becomes, in my mind, more riff-based at that point. The holding out of the note, allowing it to taper off, and having a beat or a beat and a half of silence before starting the riff over makes it feel a little more atmospheric and less riff-based. But playing the moving part over and over, to me, feels very riffy. Feels like rock, what rock does very well. And metal, and, you know, anything else that's guitar-based and riff-based. But the moving parts create odd movements. The rhythms are a bit jagged, they're a bit syncopated. It creates music through the rhythmic elements of the riffs, the harmonic elements of the riffs, and the textures of the instruments. There's another type of music that focuses on texture and rhythm over everything else. Is djent. Now, I don't want to... When did this come out? In 2014. Okay, I was going to say that this could be considered proto-djent, but that's not accurate. This came out after djent. But it does feel like, what if we did the djent idea, but less metal? A rock version of djent, if you will. Now, interestingly, I think a rock version of djent would be funk rock, and we kind of saw rhythmically staccato ideas played around dense atmospheric concepts in the 70s, but for some reason I've never drawn the line between those two genres. But this does feel like maybe the missing link between them, where funk might have led to this, which would have led to djent, if this had come out, you know, years ago. But here's the other thing though, what is going on here? This isn't Opeth. I mean, obviously it is. They wrote this music, but this is so far divorced from my understanding of what Opeth is. Also, musically, it's not quite as adventurous as I expect Opeth to be on the atmospheric side or on the riffy side. And I think beyond all of that, it has a 70s electric organ in it. Has Opeth ever used that? I don't think in my experience I've heard that. Granted, I've heard a lot of Opeth. They're definitely one of my most listened to reactions. I think we've listened to over double digits. We've gone past 10 tracks for them already. They're certainly in a very select company of bands that we've listened to double digits worth of tracks. Especially since like 70% of bands I've only heard one song from. So hitting double digits is kind of big. But I haven't heard everything from them. It's possible they use electric organ, and maybe I'm just forgetting a track too that I have heard with the electric organ in it. But this is just, everything about it screams old school to me. And I think that's why I keep thinking like the proto-djent thing, because this is not a 2014 song to me. I don't get it. It makes no sense. But it is very rhythmically oriented. And I think the verses and choruses are based around that. And even as we get into the C and D sections, we still see some rhythmic focus while we do deviate from that a little bit. But rhythm is entirely important here. And the drum work is... Dude, the drum work is incredible. Honestly, I mean, it's Opeth. I don't know the name of their drummer. I apologize for not knowing the name, but he's a beast. Every time I listen to Opeth, the drummer's just killing it. But here I think it stands out more because the guitars, bass, organ, they're all rhythmically oriented as well. But again, there's the push and the pull, a little bit of syncopation, and then allowing the sound to exist. Holding a note out and allowing it to taper off. The drummer, though, fills in all of this and is even more syncopated than the push of these riffs. even within those moments where we have 4 guitar notes and they are kind of syncopated against the beat, the drummer is putting the 10 to 16 notes within the space of the full riff. It's just incredibly melodic while still leaning into the backbeat of it, making sure that there's still that metronome beat somewhere in the kit. You're not going to get lost in the metric elements of the song, but the drummer isn't just resting on being a metronome either. Every single moment of this track has something interesting coming at us from the drummer. It's using the entire kit. It's using the kit like a melodic instrument, knowing that each part of the kit has its own pitch to it. How can we make melodies out of the drum kit? And that's what I hear coming from the drummer, not just in fills. Well, I guess technically it is, but the drummer's doing drum fills like every 2 bars. And it's just constantly moving. And while I find the guitar work and the organ work to kind of be locked into static ideas, we have this loop and we're going to play it 4 times before jumping to, the beginning of it again. Maybe we have minor variations, or maybe we're going to do this idea 4 times and then change it a little bit and do it 4 times. It's stuck in patterns. The drum work, though, is entirely linear. There are patterns within it. At the beginning, the snare is going to land on 2 and 4 every time. But what do we do around 2 and 4? That seems to fluctuate. And the drummer allows a song that I think personally I would have enjoyed on some level, but not necessarily been blown away by, and elevates that for me into a track that I'm going to keep thinking about even after I'm done with this reaction. The drummer absolutely elevates this song. It's not a song because there's no singing in it. Why Opeth with no singing? How many instrumentals do they do? I don't think I've heard any. I associate Opeth with the vocals just as much as with their atmospheric and rhythmic writing, just as much as their riffs, just as much as their drum work. This is an ensemble band to me where everybody is always at their peak, and yet we don't have the vocalist here. So much of this doesn't make... Is this a cover? I don't know. There's too many things in here that don't feel Opeth-y. I don't understand why they're the ones making it. And that's just, I'm going to be looking as soon as I post this and it gets published and people start watching. I'm just going to be refreshing the comments on it. Someone's got to have an answer. I got to know what's going on with this. What is this song? Where's the Goblin? Why is Opeth making it? Why does it sound like it's 40 years old now? It's just, I have so many questions here. Let's see. Variation. All right, here we go. I've already talked about one variation where we remove the release part of the riff and we focus on just the driven moment. We get that going over and over and over, and it kind of removes the space for the drummer to create drum fills because the guitars are just constantly going now. And so the drummer kind of locks into a more traditional pattern as well. So we hear this type of variation on the second verse or second chorus, wherever that showed up. But there's also micro variation all over the place. I don't think the harmonic pattern is entirely static throughout the A and B sections either. Like I had mentioned earlier, the drummer is consistently linear throughout most of the verse and chorus. They're always adding new, fresh ideas and doing drum fills all over the place here. Almost the entire last minute and a half of this song is the drummer just going off, doing radical things all the time. And basically the only repeated element is some sort of backbeat to help guide the listener through all of these interesting rhythmic devices. But even when I listen to the organ, when I listen to the guitars, there's micro variations going on throughout here too. No part of this track ever feels like we did this and now we're doing it again to fill more time or to just lengthen the atmosphere. There's always, well, if we're going to do this again, we should change things a little bit. And of course, that really big change in the second verse or chorus where we cut off half of the riff and just stuck with the moving part is an extreme, obvious example of this. But you can also find it in little rhythmic changes throughout. The harmonic elements change, the little leads on the organ they're developed throughout the entire run of this. It is a song that, despite focusing in on these cycles, the A and the B, and then the A and the B, it's kind of fully linear, and that's what makes this the C and the D, the C and the D section at the end of the track feel natural. It's kind of jarring getting into the C section because it's a brand new idea. It's not as quite connected as the A and the B are. But it also doesn't feel out of place either because we have been exploring a rather linear idea throughout. We can feel the cycles, sure, but it never feels like a normal loop. We do the loop. This time we're a little higher. We're not coming all the way down here. We're close to where we started, but in a different place. And as we explore this, it's similar to the last path we took, but just a little deviated from it. Like walking through a nature hike on a slightly more difficult trail. You might be able to see the easier trail off to the side, but this one is different. Your experience differs. Some of the things you'll see are a little different, even though you're kind of walking along the same path you did last time when you took the easier route. That's what this song feels like, similar but different at every moment of it, linear but cyclical. And that takes us to the C and the D sections, which are drastic departures. If we were finding bits of familiarity in the second verse and chorus, we are now leaping into a brand new area entirely here. We shift time signatures, we shift harmonic devices, we may even have some sort of key or modal change going on here. Harmonically, rhythmically, musically, the melodies are different, the drum parts are different. This section drives. I don't know if it's just because of some of the changes here that I was immediately engaged with it. The new tempo, the new rhythmic devices, the drummer completely going off with all of these ghost notes. I mean, that just, dude, the drummer's so freaking good. I don't know how many times I can say that today. There's something about it. I wouldn't say that my attention was drifting in the second verse and chorus because there was still a lot to go on. But there were some elements where I was like, okay, that's the same as we had, so I don't need to think about that as much. What's going on here? And I could like focus, and here it was just like being blasted with so many colors, and I'm trying to look at all of them now because where I was before was more of a muted palette. And now I'm just in a space where it's all fresh again. I'm trying to listen to everything at once, and it was a slightly lower energy section, I think, too, is a little quieter, some contrast for where we had been, but to me it felt so much larger. It felt vast and expansive, and some of this may have been just a way of lining up the outro of this, which brought the energy back up, kind of anticipating that, but there's something about it, just felt very fresh, and it was like I had gone from a tunnel into a vast area, and I'm just like, I want to go there, and I want to go there, and I want to go there. I want to see what that's over there. What's going on over there? And it's just like, there's so much to look at here. Even though, like I said, I do think the energy came down as a little lighter of a section, but to me, it was like, it's a playground, dude. And again, I think a lot of that comes down to the drummer just absolutely killing it at that moment. But what does all of this mean? Yeah, I don't know, dude. I don't really get a lot out of this emotionally. To me, this is a technical display. The rhythmic devices, the constant evolution, the push and pull, the contrast there, even the harmonic changes throughout. I don't really get too much of an emotional pull from it as much as I do a technical one. It's neat that they can do these rhythmic things. It's neat that we have all this variation. It's neat that the drummer is consistently interesting and always evolving their rhythmic devices. It's neat that it's cyclical but linear and that devolves into pure lineality. But I don't get a story out of this. This is a bunch of really cool techniques back to back, but I don't get a narrative from it. And there's no lyrics. Why were there no goblins in here? I'm going to pass the mic over to y'all. figuratively anyways. These are my thoughts on Goblin by Opeth. What did you think of them? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this track? Let me know. Put all of that, as well as anything else you'd like to add, such as answers to some of my questions, into the comments section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. So that wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.